What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. Damn, I haven't heard much about these two in a long time. I remember they were hogging the spotlight and were always acting annoying, bullying the opposition and barely scraping out of the arena with the title. I personally feel that Michelle McCool in particular is often overlooked. I don't think she would have struggled in this era for a couple of reasons. As a worker, she wasn't bad at all, and obviously a bunch are going to place an asterisk next to her career because of her marriage with The Undertaker, but it shouldn't take away from her talent, she wasn't bad at all. Layla, I prefer her to Michelle on the character side, and she's just much more interesting to me from the area. Matter of fact, I even go as far as to say that she's the glue to Laycool. Hey, that rhymes. Together they brought the best of their worlds. And looking back on their run, their characters would fit in those teen movies or shows with their mean-spirited attitude. The way they spoke down to the baby faces, the annoyingness, all that. So right now, let's go back and talk about the rise and fall of Laycool. So around early 2009, Michelle McCool turned heel. It was a very slow burn turn that was long overdue, as McCool had grown stale because she was literally going out there smiling. It was tiring. It was a nice fresh change. Add to that, she was much more effective as a bad girl. It just felt much more real. Layla was just a manager and was occasionally wrestling at this point. But around the summer, she was wrestling more often, and the duo never had an outright beginning, they just started teaming up. But if I had to give you the correct date, it's probably the November 6, 2009 episode of SmackDown. So Michelle McCool was embroiled in a feud with Mickie James, and this segment saw both women bully her. They were talking about how she should leave SmackDown, and she bounced back mentioning Survivor Series, but they promised to retaliate. The following week, Layla bugged James, giving way to McCool running into her locker room, and it turns out they stole and destroyed her belongings. Basically, it's like a new girl goes to school and gets tormented by bullies. It gives off a Mean Girls vibe. Ahead of Survivor Series, James got the opportunity to face Layla on SmackDown, and she was obviously furious with last week, so unleashed hell. Layla took the loss, but nonetheless, she told Mickie to stare at the Titantron. Suddenly, Michelle's mocking her, calling her Piggy James, and I'm just wondering, what the hell is this? And this is, of course, what a lot of people hated about Laycool's run. The fact that they bullied Mickie James and the fact that WWE decided, to humiliate her. I personally don't think this was necessary. It was pretty tasteless. And it's not only me that believes this to be the case. The competitors themselves feel the same way. Mickie wasn't really happy at the time for other stuff outside of wrestling, yet they did this. It's just like adding insult to injury. On the other side of things, there was actually some people that thought this story, was a bit inspiring as time went on. That's one thing we gotta mention. Now about that elimination match, Layla didn't hold on, and it was Michelle. She managed to get to the very end with Mickie, but fell short to Melina. Moving on, Mickie finally addressed the whole Piggy James thing, and she said that whatever jokes they're pulling, she's not going anywhere. Clearly, though, those words hurt her. You could see that in storyline, Mickie never seemed to outright admit her feelings. She was focused on the Women's Championship, however. About that one, Mickie did win the right to challenge for the gold, and Laycool were pretty annoyed by this, wearing their Piggy James shirts as well. Afterwards, Josh Matthews interviewed the #1 contender. She was hyped as hell. James shot that she feels on top of the world, and she said that Michelle went way beyond personal. After all the hurtful things she's done, Michelle's only proven that she loves to talk. So Mickie opted to fight. Those two jumped her, but all of a sudden Maria made the save. The heels ran away, and with regards to TLC, they had a decent match. Let me explain why. Right from the get-go, there was a lot of intensity, especially from James herself, but nonetheless, the champion had to force Mickie to work from under. And even when the momentum was shifting, McCool prevented a comeback. She took a hurricane on the outside a few seconds later, leading to Mickie fighting back and unlocking the comeback. Layla, though, interfered, took a boot from her friend, and James tried capitalizing. The crowd went insane because of that, and they thought the match, the title was changing hands. But Michelle McCool hit the boot, and that's all she wrote. Not a bad match at all. Now, it wasn't like Laycool were stirring the pot with just Mickie James at the time. They were also hateful towards Maria. They were body-shaming her, and at the same time, they also knew not to get on the bad side of Beth Phoenix. They're sucking up to her. She didn't care about this. She didn't want their approval or anything like that. As for Mickie James, they apparently were sorry for their actions and handed her a Christmas gift. It ended up being a Jenny Craig certificate. Wow. This greatly affected Mickie James later on. Her emotions were getting the best of her in a tag match against Layla and Beth Phoenix. McCool continued the roasting on commentary, and by the time Mickie James was in, Layla took an ass-kicking. It was an emphatic victory, and right after the match concluded, Mickie went after Michelle. The Glamazon, though, got involved and ended up slamming her onto the table. Still, it was a pretty awkward encounter for McCool, as Beth Phoenix wasn't really interested in being friends. Beth Phoenix, she was just a lone wolf at this point, and in my eyes was more of a tweener. McCool and Layla didn't seem to bother her until the January 1st episode of SmackDown, when McCool accidentally nailed the wrong person. This cost Phoenix to lose the match, and afterwards she obliterated Michelle. Mickie did the same with Layla, and it seemed like those two were on better terms, but from out of nowhere, Phoenix caught James with a glam slam. In light of the mess they made, Laycool apologized for their actions, sucked up to Beth, before making fun of James in a conversation that didn't even involve her. Phoenix was confused as to why Layla was joking around when she's got a match with her later that night. As expected, the match was mostly one-sided. Matt Striker was saying some random stuff such as Habibi. Oh, and Phoenix won it with ease, I should mention that. The women's champion was left stunned with the results because it meant Beth was going to come for the title sooner or later. She chose the right moment and struck. Out of everyone, though, it was Mickie James that made the save, and it turns out she wanted to return the favor from last week. However, Mickie would get hers soon enough. This time around, Beth let them destroy James. She didn't want to cause any sort of ruckus, and so Mickie was left a battered and beaten woman. Soon enough, it was confirmed that Michelle McCool is defending the Women's Championship against Mickie James at the Royal Rumble, but in the meantime, Laycool wanted to hold a go-away party. They want to have the party just the way she wants it. In their eyes, they wanted to have lots of food there, and Maria of all people wasn't fond of this. She straight up said that they're annoying, and I can't say anybody disagrees. Maria was fed up and said that one way or another they're leaving, either by walking or being carried away. They no-sold this and made fun of her appearance in Celebrity Apprentice. Maria called them morons before Mickie James came out. She said that she was sick and tired of this mean girl shtick, and Mickie pitied them because they're happy at the misery in everybody's life. And at the same time, she said that they're nothing. Mickie was talking about herself and the fans, they're real women. They come in all shapes, and all those two could do is agree sarcastically. She didn't care or want their approval, and even said that the only people that could ask for her to leave is the fans. Layla said that they wanted her to stay because she's the easiest one to see. They're still giving some backhanded shots. Michelle said that the reason why they want Mickie James is because it's 2-1. WWE and Animal Planet. Mickie responded mentioning Michelle's, "Are you smarter than a 5th grader?" appearance before saying that at the Royal Rumble, it's time to embarrass her. A brawl ensues when all of a sudden Beth Phoenix come out and she was torn. She was conflicted over whose side she should choose, and it turns out she sided with Laycool. Michelle then threw a pig cake in Mickey's face before pouring the punch, and once again, the mean girl stood tall. It reminds me of those teen movie scenes where a girl gets embarrassed at this huge party or something and the bullies go too far. It just kind of reminded me of something like that. Ahead of the Royal Rumble, there was one more segment, and this turned out to be the most infamous in the feud. It was a segment where Layla came out dressed in that fat suit, and the fans' reaction says it all. Matt Striker was laughing it off. Layla was whining about wanting more cakes. It was horrendous, and at this point, I don't think it was necessary. It just showed how WWE can be at times. And with regards to the Royal Rumble, that's a different story. So Michelle came out to poke fun. For the 100th time, she said that James was nowhere to be seen, and if she was anywhere near, nobody could miss her. McCool thought Piggy was going to appear tonight, and suddenly Layla once again emerged with the whole outfit. Then the challenger had enough, and even though the story itself was dumb, the payoff, the conclusion was so damn satisfying. So Mickie James came out. She knocked down Layla before entering the ring. Bell rings. McCool boots her friend accidentally before taking a DDT. 1, 2, 3. It's about damn time. She added insult to injury by dropping Layla right onto Michelle before a bunch of the babyface women came in with a cake. Those two idiots knew what was coming, and they were humiliated, embarrassed, and thus the feud was basically over. Whatever criticism you have, at least they ended it on a positive note. We could look at a couple of other feuds and say otherwise. Not many are going to say that they like this feud. Matter of fact, it was perceived to be one of the worst from that time period as well. Following the Royal Rumble, Laycool slowly developed a positive relationship with the consultant of SmackDown, Vickie Guerrero. Also, it's not like the fat jokes ended. They just weren't as intense as previously. Now on the topic of Vickie Guerrero, Mickie accidentally dropped a plate of cottage cheese right onto her, leading to a 2-on-1 handicap match. Vickie obviously didn't appreciate the accident and wanted to punish the champion. She tussled with them, but ultimately Laycool emerged victorious. Vickie was still bitter, so she booked a title match between Mickie and Michelle with herself as a special referee on the February 26, 2010 episode of SmackDown. The officiating was pretty ordinary, but from out of nowhere, Vickie fell through the ropes. It was so damn random, but when she enters, Mickie had Michelle's shoulders on the mat, and Vickie decided to randomly slap her. Boot from McCool, 1, 2, 3, new champion. Mickie's final title reign in WWE ended up being one of the most forgettable in history. Then again, that used to happen a lot at the time. Like, I completely forgot Jillian actually won the title for one night. Mickie, I believe, had issues with management at the time for a couple of reasons and would abruptly be released in April of 2010. There was this report at the time that she was late for the European tour bus a few times. After that, they weren't all in on her musical aspirations. But this is about Laycool. I just wanted to mention that because this was basically the beginning of the end. In other places, Vickie was proud to be associated with Laycool. She was too distracted by the friendship to make decisions, and Beth Phoenix, on the other hand, wanted her title shot, but Vickie had such a huge ego and told her that will never happen unless she says so. There was some tension in this segment, with Beth wanting her title match and was not outright threatening Guerrero. But on the topic of Vickie Guerrero, she was doing a hell of a lot of work with and for Laycool. Beth Phoenix at this point was a full-on babyface and actually assaulted her, and this was all because of the title shot. Despite this, Phoenix actually apologized twice, yet Vickie thought it wasn't good enough. Matter of fact, she booked a one-on-one match with Phoenix 2 nights before WrestleMania. Turns out the matchup was a 5-on-1 handicap match for Vickie, and ended up being a very easy victory. After the match, she almost hit the frog splash, but the babyface woman made the save. It was a pretty awkward situation for Guerrero. She's humiliated and embarrassed, and the commentary was in disgust. Okay, about WrestleMania 26, Laycool and Vicky featured in a 10-woman tag team match. I honestly don't remember much from this because, for one, I haven't watched it since the day of WrestleMania 26, but I of course remember the ending. The match itself saw Vicky Guerrero take a huge beating. The women all hit their finishers with Phoenix standing tall. It seemed like Vicky was getting her comeuppance, but that wasn't to be, and instead, Guerrero hit a frog splash in honor of Eddie. It wasn't good, but obviously she's not a trained wrestler. You can't use that against her. There was this awkward moment where Kelly's shoulders were up, but nonetheless the heels emerged victorious. Despite this victory, the feud with Beth Phoenix was only just beginning. The match was booked for Extreme Rules, but lacked much of a build-up. And that's something a lot of the women's feuds from the time lack. However, there was one segment in particular that I gotta talk about. The match itself was an Extreme Makeover match. I don't know what that is, but we'll know in about a minute. But let's talk about that segment. After winning a tag match against Mickey and Beth, Mickey's final match, Laycool attacked Phoenix, launched her to an ironing board before MacLeod leveled her with a boot. They even messed around with her face rub, and the match itself featured a bunch of stuff around the ring, such as a broomstick, hairspray, ironing board, and they used these things as weapons. This messy encounter wasn't some sort of match that you'll be intrigued to watch. Not many liked the stipulation and felt that it didn't help the women's division at all, but nonetheless, Beth Phoenix hit the Glam Slam to become the women's champion. At least she actually won it. You know, it could have been worse. But she fell victim to the same thing that Mickie James did. Short title reign. On the May 14, 2010 episode of SmackDown, Beth Phoenix was set to face Rosa Mendes. This was in her hometown of Buffalo, New York, I should mention. Just as the match was about to begin, Vicky Guerrero kicked Rosa out and announced that Michelle McCool invoked her rematch clause. But then she revealed that the title is defended in a handicap match. As expected, Beth put up a fight. She tried her best, but her let me proved to be a huge problem. She gets up, tosses Michelle into the corner before bumping into her, and Layla goes for the cover. 1, 2, 3, new champion. Layla was the new women's champion, and the crowd didn't really react to this. Matt Striker was cringe on commentary, of course, saying cheerio, and I thought this was just hot potatoing of the title. But Beth Phoenix actually tore her ACL in a matchup earlier that week. It left her sidelined for about 5 months, and with Layla becoming the new champion, it led to one of the most memorable things from Laycool's run, them being co-champions. From out of nowhere, Michelle McCool started bringing out a replica women's championship, and it took a bit to actually learn why they held an additional title. This was apparently because of Vicky Guerrero, and they were under the belief that since it was a handicap match, they were co-champions. And damn, were they annoying. Alright, I don't hear much about the whole title thing, but from what I could find, it was hated. Me personally, I don't like it because it makes the title look like a bit of a joke. Then again, it does fit in line with Laycool's characters at the time. That's what I think about it. I want to know what you guys think, because I do not hear much about it. The duo didn't really have much competition, but Kelly, who they started calling Smelly Kelly. I don't remember this at all, but then again, it was on Superstars, and I always used to put it on the background while playing San Andreas or something. But anyways, Kelly won the right to challenge for the Women's Championship. Laycool started to mentor low-key on NXT. This is not really the place for it. That's for another video. And at the same time, Rosa Mendes was desperate to join them. They turned her down in usual fashion. They buried her, trashed her makeup, and left her distressed. This guy was looking like he regret signing that contract, and Kelly, on the other hand, managed to beat both members of Laycool to receive a title shot at Money in the Bank. Layla claimed that the only way she'll lose the title is if she passes out due to Kelly's bad smell. Nonetheless, Kelly had yet another victory heading to the pay-per-view, and about the match itself, it was forgettable. The match was messy, botchy, and not a good watch. Layla retained though, and with the success of Money in the Bank, Laycool decided to celebrate the victory with BFF necklaces. Teddy Long though put a damper on the whole occasion by informing Layla that she's got to defend the title against Tiffany next week, or as they call her, Skirt Tiffany. That's how it was booked initially, but Vicky Guerrero ruined everything by having Michelle McCool be the one to defend the title. This would prove to cause huge issues for Laycool, but in the meantime, Michelle retained the belt. Teddy Long had enough of this facade, and he told Michelle and Layla straight up that if they don't decide who's champion, then he will. And this led to one of the most memorable or infamous moments of the WWE Women's Championship. So in the August 6, 2010 episode of SmackDown, Laycool desperately tried to prevent a situation from giving up the title. They're trying to think of ways to keep both belts on them. Teddy didn't care, and so Michelle gave up hers. Didn't mean she gave it up completely, no. They bickered before splitting the title into a BFL belt, and Teddy was like, I don't have time for this. Their first act as BFF champions was confronting the Divas champion, Melina. They came out at SummerSlam to congratulate the champion and take pictures of her, and Melina wanted none of Layla, so Michelle's like, oh, you don't like Layla? And delusionally thinks that Melina wants a picture with her. They end up attacking her and leaving her battered and beaten. Now, why would Laycool want to do this? They want her title, simple as that. Oh, and it's because of her crying, apparently. They eventually challenged her to a unification match for Night of Champions, and the Divas champion accepted the challenge under one condition. She wanted a lumberjack match. The duo accepted, and the match was on. The only thing those two had to worry about was who faces Melina at the pay-per-view. Ended up being Michelle, but Layla was anything but happy about this. Suddenly, it was revealed that all the names on the papers were actually Michelle's. The true champion was so angry about this that she refused to be by Michelle's side at Night of Champions. That proved to be a huge lie, as Layla aided her friend in winning both titles, and thus the WWE Women's Championship was gone. I can't say it was an outright terrible decision, because SmackDown was essentially a one-man show. Laycool were dominant, there was no competition, and it's like the German Football League, one top dog. Beth Phoenix was injured, Mickie James was gone, and nobody posed to be a huge threat to those women at this point. So I can't really see anything wrong with that decision. Maybe they chose to get rid of the wrong title though? And to many, that Divas Championship represents what's wrong with the women's division at the time. But anyways, Layla had to defend the title the next night. The match didn't even last 3 minutes and she won clean, and so this once again meant there was a lack of competition. Enter Natalya. She won a battle royal to win the #1 contender spot for Hell in a Cell, and this match was decent, but the finish was more atrocious than anything you'll see. Layla just tossed a shoe at Natalya, and it's like the ref was ready for it. It was a literal tap. It tapped Natalya, and that was enough for the DQ. Matt Striker, of course, had to do a tongue-in-cheek reference calling Layla a heel. He just loved doing those. But nonetheless, the feud continued to bragging rights. Natalya had an issue with the whole flawless statement. Laycool wanted to remind her that she's broadcasted in HD. They insulted her appearance, mentioned how she's got to shave every day to prevent herself from looking like the Anvil, and Natalya poked fun at their headset performance the previous week, and I warn you not to check that out. Natalya said that after tonight, they're going to confirm that Laycool's IQ is lower than their combined and non-existent waist size. As if they give a damn. They were happy to be skinny, and the duo continued being annoying. They even called themselves the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Laycool thought that they accomplished something, but the tables turned and they got their asses beat. Also, is it just me or during the Divas era this image was a common occurrence? Heel tries running away, then the rest of the Divas come out dressed in street clothes, toss them back in. Heading into the event, they failed to neutralize Natalya, and whenever it seemed like they were close, she bounced back. Now, with regards to bragging rights, Natalya was dominant. She was in control for the most part, but then Michelle kicked her in the face, leading to Layla retaining. But if you thought this feud was over, you got another thing coming. Natalya was still knocking on their doors, and she beat both Michelle and Layla in separate matches to receive a title shot at Survivor Series. And if things weren't already bad for Laycool, Mae Young beat them in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Survivor Series also marked the end of their title run, and for her last chance, Natalya decided to turn into John Cena. She overcome the odds and all that. The match legit lasted only 3 minutes, with Natalya forcing Michelle to tap out. Afterwards, the duo attacked, and they were of course sore losers. Then Beth Phoenix made a return after 6 months and hit the Glam Slam on Layla, thus reigniting the feud with those two idiots. What the title loss also meant was Laycool was banned from Raw. Beth Phoenix, meanwhile, continued terrorizing those two, leading to the first women's tag team tables match for TLC. Laycool did not like this decision at all, and before the pay-per-view protested in an effort to have the match canceled. They didn't want to participate in such a barbaric match. Laycool had made up their minds, but then Natalya and Beth Phoenix came in with the table. Beth promised to end the laughing and jokes at TLC, but they no-sold this. Laycool then asked them, how will it be possible to put us through a table? So those two were ready to demonstrate it. Both women were absolutely petrified at the design of the table. Add to that, were fearing the worst and so ran away. With regards to the tables match at TLC, not a bad match at all. I think if we're speaking positively, probably Laycool's best match on pay-per-view. So the heels were initially afraid. They were pissing themselves with fear, but they actually started getting into the match. Matter of fact, they were in control for most of it, and sure, they tapped out, but it didn't matter because of the rules, and the duo were so damn close to ending things, but Natalya pushed them onto the table. It didn't give, so Natalya went for the crossbody to score the W. Following this, Laycool did a whole lot of nothing. Without the titles, they weren't notably featured. However, you can notice that their tag team was taking a turn elsewhere because tensions rose over the next few weeks. Nonetheless, they were still a unit, and they were annoying everybody with their voices, and it took a while for them to feature in a program. At Elimination Chamber, Laycool decided to come to the aid of Vicky Guerrero. She was getting assaulted by Kelly Kelly, and they did something about it. All of a sudden, Trish Stratus, of all people, made the save, and she turned her back, leading to the egomaniacs attacking. Stratus had that legend trait, meaning she wasn't going to lose this battle. That's exactly what happened here. They took this to heart, and once Stratus made her first in-ring appearance in a while, they attacked her. This led to Vicky winning the matchup, and afterwards, they decided to disturb Snooki of the Jersey Shore. Yeah, this is so 2011. She stood her ground. This led to a brawl. The heels run out of there, and Guerrero tells Snooki that she's way over her head and trying to enter their world. Following this, she issued a challenge. Laycool and Dolph Ziggler against Trish Stratus, Snooki, and John Morrison at WrestleMania. As expected, they accepted. The build for the match itself wasn't that memorable, barring the final episode of Raw. So Trish and Snooki were hanging at a bar, talking to Josh Matthews, and Snooki's like, I'm gonna beat their asses at WrestleMania, or something along the lines of that. All of a sudden, Laycool emerged, and Snooki didn't even give them a moment to introduce themselves. They brawl, many tried to separate them, and honestly, it felt like a reality TV show scene at times with the constant cussing. With regards to WrestleMania, Snooki wasn't as bad as people thought she was. I mean, nobody thought she'd pull out a handspring, but yeah, Laycool took the L. One thing to know, however, about the match was dissension between Layla and Michelle. At one point, Michelle selfishly shoved her away in order to wrestle. There was obviously the whole Merce and Trish controversy backstage. That's a different story. The tension continued to grow in the next couple of weeks, as in their next tag match, McCool thought Layla ditched her, when it was clear as day that she got knocked down. Layla told Michelle that she pushed her, and so in response, Michelle shoved her away, leading to Layla taking a beating, and as she's going to tag her, McCool conveniently feels something in her back. But it seemed like Layla was desperate to patch things up, and Michelle wasn't really putting in effort, nor listening to what she says. And because of these ongoing issues, Laycool went to couples counseling. Michelle didn't understand why they were even there. You know, they're not a couple or something along the lines of that. McCool thought that she had been carrying Layla for years, complaining about how she's dragging her down, and the whole therapy session didn't work out well. In the ring, Layla took yet another L, which technically came from Michelle, but at the end of the day, it was proving her point, you know? Michelle's better off without her. Laycool was slowly being fractured, yet Layla was still trying to make amends, but it seemed like there was no going back. McCool was talking about how Layla's riding her coattails, wanting her clothes back, and even questioned whether or not Layla was flawless. She said tears though. Michelle apologized before attacking her. Alright, so Laycool is over now. Laycool was done. They're now feuding with each other. On draft day, McCool cost her old friend the match, and to give you an idea of how important this was, Michael Cole was cutting an uninteresting promo during the match. He buried the woman, saying he's a real athlete unlike them, and talking about putting on a clinic. And again, you guys know what I say. Another story for another day. Laycool actually stood up to Michelle and left her laying on the ground. Obviously, she was remorseful. It was her ex-friend, but you gotta do what you gotta do. This led to a matchup on SmackDown later that weekend. That didn't go down. Why? Because they brawled. They forgot about the rules and were counted out. Michael Cole saying this was tragic, sucking up to Michelle, and meanwhile, those two continued brawling. They were separated, and so Layla challenged Michelle to a no DQ match at Extreme Rules. She was hoping to finally shut her up, but Michelle accepted under one condition. She wanted to lose or leave's WWE match. Layla accepted, and the match was official. Before that match went down, Layla actually tried to apologize to the woman in the back, and Kelly said that she didn't like her, but hated Michelle much more and wished her luck. Michael Cole was so distraught that it had come down to this, and right out of the gate, Michelle attacked. Cheap shot, I should know. Layla, though, didn't really stay down, and she kicked up the intensity. The match felt like a full-on fight, and you could feel the hatred at times. At one point, Michelle even begged for mercy. She lied, of course, but Layla didn't budge. Even when she took the Faith Breaker, she managed to bounce back and win with a roll-up to send Michelle McCool packing. Even though she won, Layla was in tears, as well as Michelle, and it wasn't a bad match at all. Like, for the time they were given, it was actually decent, and the fans, meanwhile, didn't really care that Michelle was gone. They were serenading her with the goodbye song when all of a sudden, Karma debuted and obliterated her. And so that's Laycool's run. They were all over the place in their time together. Some of it was bad, some of it was good. You know, like, while I was making this video, there were some moments where I was like, whatever. But then there's other moments which were absolutely hilarious to me. My personal opinion, I feel their run lasted a bit too long. I think they should have split a bit early on, perhaps after Natalya won the Divas title, somewhere around that time period. The team was pretty entertaining for the most part, but obviously there was some duds, and I honestly kind of lost interest in continuing the video during the Natalya arc, but it picked up once I got to the Snooki storyline. I prefer Layla, you know, she was a better character of the two. When thinking of the funny things, it's mostly her doing the comedic things, while Michelle was better on the wrestling side. That's Laycool's run. What woman's storyline or feud you guys want me to talk about next? Just comment down below. We'll do something. What do you guys think of Laycool? Please comment down below. That's the first video. Make sure you hit the layout on the like button and perhaps the faith breaker on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.